Do you think just because you have diabetes means you can't have dessert? Think again. Today I'm showing you my top secrets to eating dessert with diabetes and keeping your blood sugar in check while you do it. So stay tuned. Hey everyone, Erin here with Healthy Mom, Happy Family. And did you know one of the most frequently asked questions I get from people who have diabetes is, can I eat dessert? Look, I have a huge sweet tooth, so I get it. I would never want you to go through life without having dessert. And I have very good news for you if you have diabetes. You absolutely can still eat dessert. It just takes a little bit of creativity, a little bit of balance, and you can still eat what you love while keeping your blood sugar in check. So I figured as a registered dietitian and a diabetes educator, I would make this video today to share with you some easy tricks and tips that can help you to enjoy dessert, to kind of remake some of your favorite traditional desserts a little bit more blood sugar friendly, and that way you can eat what you love without your blood sugar levels spiking. Now, before we jump right in, I just want to remind you that if you're looking for tips and tricks on managing type 2 diabetes, or if you're looking for easy and nutritious recipes, or even just life hacks to make it simple to make time for your health, even though you feel like you have no time for yourself, then I would love for you to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a new video. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing why traditional dessert recipes can be damaging to blood sugar and what to look out for when you're choosing dessert. I'm also going to be sharing my top tips for transforming almost any dessert to make it more blood sugar friendly. And finally, stay tuned to the very end because I'm going to be sharing a few of my favorite diabetes-friendly dessert recipes with you, and you don't want to miss those. I'm also going to be posting a link below where you can grab my free 25 low-carb diabetes dessert recipes that you can make in minutes. It's a free ebook, so make sure you grab that as well. Okay, so I don't know about you, but once I start talking about desserts, it makes me a little hungry. So let's dive in and take a look at how you can eat dessert while managing diabetes and keeping blood sugar in check. And then we can go eat. Now, the main reason that many people with diabetes are told desserts off limits is that most desserts contain a large amount of added sugar and refined carbohydrates. And since these two nutrients together can digest rapidly, they can quickly raise blood sugar levels. But what I want you to keep in mind is that how quickly blood sugar levels rise is impacted more than just by the sugar content of the food. Okay, so for instance, if you eat a teaspoon of sugar right now, your blood sugar is going to go up quickly since there's nothing to slow it down. It's just going to go right up. And that's because it's a simple sugar. It's being digested rapidly, it's going into the body, and it's using it rapidly. But if you take that same teaspoon of sugar and you incorporate it into a tablespoon of peanut butter, what do you think? Do you think your blood sugar would rise just as fast? No, it wouldn't, because the fat and the protein in the peanut butter take longer to digest. So the sugar enters the bloodstream more slowly, so you see a lower rise and fall. Blood sugar still goes up, but not as quickly and not as high. So how much you eat and what you're eating your food with makes a big difference. All right, similar situation. If I took 1 teaspoon of sugar, it's gonna raise my blood sugar far less than if I ate 2 tablespoons or 6 times as much sugar. So when it comes to balancing your diet to manage blood sugar and eating dessert, we have to consider how much we're eating at one time and what we're eating it with. And you also have to remember you are an individual. How food impacts you and your blood sugar might be different than someone else. So frequently monitoring your blood sugar, especially when you're incorporating new foods, is very important to understand how your body reacts to food so that you can determine the best food choices and portions for you. Now, as I mentioned before, you can eat dessert with diabetes. Pretty much you can eat any food you want when you have diabetes unless you're allergic to it, then we need to avoid it. But it really comes down to balance. I have 3 guidelines I share with my clients when they want to have dessert with diabetes, and I'm going to share those with you now as well. The first is to make sure you're eating something you actually love and you want to eat it. I don't want you to go eat some sugar-free, fat-free, carb-free food that doesn't really taste that great because you feel like that's what you should eat. So you're eating something you don't even like, you don't feel satisfied, and you ate it, but now you still want that original dessert you were avoiding. So I want you to eat what you want. But, guideline number 2, I want you to be mindful when you're eating. Okay, it is so important that you focus on what you are eating and you don't have distractions around you. So when you sit down to eat a dessert, I want you to first sit down. We're not eating it while we're standing. Put the food on a plate. Get rid of the distractions around you, so no computer, phone, TV, just you and the dessert. and eat it slowly. One small bite at a time, really involve all your senses. What does the dessert taste like, smell like? What's the texture? And the more you can involve all your senses, the more satisfying it's gonna be. And then make sure that you're actually putting your fork down in between bites. You don't wanna be so focused on that next bite, you're not even enjoying what you're eating. So the more you can be mindful and really eat slowly and enjoy the food, the more you're gonna feel satisfied from it. And third, I want you to be active, especially after having a dessert. So when we think about blood sugar, what it is it's just energy. Our body has sugar in the bloodstream, glucose, and then our cells utilize it for energy. So the more energy we expend, the more we move, the quicker we utilize that sugar. So after having a dessert, I want you to be as active as you can be. Maybe you're going for a short walk, maybe you're just getting up and moving around, but don't eat the dessert and then just sit down or go right to sleep. That's not gonna be as great for blood sugar as if you're up and moving. I don't need you to go run a marathon, okay? You don't need to punish yourself with exercise because you had a dessert, but it's just the act that you're up and moving so your body is utilizing more sugar versus being sedentary. That's going to help you with blood sugar management after enjoying dessert. So now let's talk about how to choose the best dessert for diabetes. Now, like I said before, you can have dessert with diabetes, and you can have the dessert you want. But the higher the amount of sugar and refined carbohydrates in the dessert, the smaller the portion size has to be, okay? Because we need to prevent that big spike in blood sugar. So if you're having something that's really rich and tons of added sugar, like candy for instance, you can have it, but the portion does need to be smaller than if we're eating something that's more naturally sweet with not as much added sugar. Okay, so the alternative when we talk about dessert, if we want to have a bigger portion, is to incorporate a few secret swaps to any dessert recipe. And that's going to really keep the flavor there. It's still going to taste very much the same, the texture is still going to be the same, but it can reduce the amount of added sugar in the recipe. And when we cut down on the added sugar, many times we're also reducing the overall carbohydrate content, sometimes the calories are reduced, and many times we're boosting important nutrients like fiber or even proteins and healthy fats in the process, which all help to slow down digestion. They slow down how quickly how quickly food is digested and leading to spikes in blood sugar in the bloodstream. So those types of swaps can make it easier to really eat what you love with a slightly larger portion while still keeping blood sugar in check. Okay, so my first swap when we talk about improving a dessert recipe to make it more diabetes friendly is to replace added sugar in any type of baked good with pureed fruit instead. So this could be mashed banana, it could be pureed prunes, it could be unsweetened applesauce. And this is gonna work really well when we're talking about baked goods. And this is why it works. So when we use a 1-to-1 ratio, so let's say your cookie recipe called for a cup of sugar to be added to it, and we swap it out with 1 cup of pureed prunes or 1 cup of mashed banana. What we're doing is we're still giving that recipe the same sweetness. We're actually giving the recipe a lot of moisture too, because when we incorporate the pureed fruit, it has more moisture than the sugar would have. But what happens is we're still getting that flavor, but we're cutting out the added sugar. And we're adding something that's naturally sweet, that has beneficial antioxidants and has fiber and more complex carbohydrate while still preserving the recipe. And that's why it's better for you. Many times you're gonna see that this recipe overall comes down to being a little bit lower in calories, a little bit lower in total carbohydrate. One example of this that I love are my chocolate chip prune cookies. A lot of people are surprised that I'm using prunes instead of added sugar, but they taste like traditional chocolate chip cookies. They're so good. And I think you would really enjoy these. I'll put the link below so you can try them out. But it's just a simple swap. All the other ingredients are the same, but the only swap is that we're taking out the added sugar, we're putting in the pureed prunes instead, and you have this delicious cookie recipe that's better for blood sugar management. Okay, so now let's talk about a swap for frosting, because let's be honest, what's a good dessert if it doesn't have frosting, right? Problem is, traditional frosting is just loaded with added sugar. That's pretty much all it is. Sometimes there's some fat involved, and it's gonna send blood sugar soaring. So what I recommend instead is to swap out traditional frosting, and you can make your own with Greek yogurt. So you can either take plain Greek yogurt and flavor it with vanilla extract and a pinch of stevia or even a little bit of sugar alcohol if you want to keep the carbs low. Or you could just use a vanilla Greek yogurt, which is already sweetened. You just want to watch because different brands have different amounts of added sugar. So just watch the one you choose has the lowest amount of added sugar. Now, that is a perfect substitute. It's a nice thick frosting alternative if you want vanilla frosting. If you want chocolate frosting, you can take the same thing and just add a little bit of unsweetened cocoa powder. So you have your sweetener of choice, you have a little bit of cocoa powder, you have the Greek yogurt, and you get this thick, creamy topping that's delicious and a really great spread, whether you're making healthier donuts, healthier cinnamon rolls, so many different things you can use it on. My favorite way to use this is my sugar-free cinnamon roll that is a mug cake. It's actually a cinnamon roll that you can make one serving at a time in the microwave, which makes it like a huge win in my book. But I'll link to that recipe below too, because that one incorporates this Greek yogurt frosting and actually utilizes some cream cheese too. So it makes that cream cheese frosting we all know and love when it comes to a cinnamon roll. Okay, so that is swap number 2 when it comes to switching out for frosting. So now let's talk about chocolate when it comes to diabetes and dessert. Now, I am a huge chocolate lover, so I would never ever tell you that you have to give up chocolate. Just not gonna happen. But the best choice is to choose dark chocolate whenever possible over milk chocolate or white chocolate. Basically, the darker the chocolate, the higher the percent cacao and the less added sugar. So the darker the chocolate you choose, typically you're gonna see the lower amounts of added sugar and lower amount of carbohydrate. All right, now choosing a dark chocolate, you can add that to dessert in so many ways. So they do sell dark chocolate chips. You can even find chocolate chips that are lower in sugar because they sweeten them with stevia instead of traditional added sugar. Now, these are all ways you can scale back the added sugar when you're putting chocolate into a recipe. These chocolates can be melted down and hardened if you want to drizzle chocolate over something. So there's many, many ways to incorporate this into a dessert recipe. I typically will just get the dark chocolate chips and put a few in if I'm making something like chocolate chip cookies. Works really, really well. I've even used to make, if you've seen trending, those hot chocolate bombs, which are great in the winter. The hot chocolate bombs, though, are basically a chocolate shell with hot cocoa inside. So they are a bomb of added sugar, too. So I have used the lower sugar chocolate chips, the ones made with stevia, to melt those down, put them in the same silicone molds that you would make those hot cocoa bombs from. And then I have this DIY lower sugar hot chocolate mix that I'll link to below. It's on my blog, but you can fill that with it. So you can still have these same hot cocoa bombs with far less added sugar, and it's not gonna have the same impact on blood sugar, but you're still enjoying a trendy dessert that your friends and family are loving too. So there's so many ways that you can make these swaps and still eat what you love. Now, the last swap I wanted to share with you, it doesn't actually impact the sugar content of the recipe. So you're probably thinking, well, then why the heck are you sharing it with me if it's not gonna impact the sugar? But this swap really does still benefit diabetes management, okay? So if you are baking, let's say we're making cookies, right? Or any kind of baked good, they tend to call for a lot of added butter or shortening. And the problem with butter and shortening is they're rich in saturated fat, a lot of animal fat. And we know that when we have too much saturated fat in the diet, even though it's not a carb, saturated fat in the diet can make our cells more insulin resistant, and that can make it harder to manage blood sugar. So instead, a simple swap that you can use in baked goods is take out the butter or the shortening and replace it instead in a 1-to-1 ratio with mashed avocado. You can mash up the avocado, and what's great with avocado is it has a very, very neutral flavor, so you really can't tell that you've swapped out the butter for the avocado. Now, obviously it's not gonna work if you need melted butter in a recipe, but this is for if you're incorporating any kind of fat into a baked good. So if it calls for a cup of butter in my cookies, I will swap it out instead with a cup of mashed avocado. And now I am getting more of those heart-healthy plant-based fats. I am going to get more fiber, more nutrients. All those things are gonna be beneficial for blood sugar from the recipe itself. And it's helping to reduce the amount of overall saturated fat in the diet, which can help with insulin resistance. I actually used this swap when I made my keto sugar cookie recipe. I'm gonna link to that below too. But I really wanted to see if I could make this lower carb, healthier fat sugar cookie recipe, because sugar cookies use so much butter. And it actually worked out really, really well. So check it out if you're interested in what it looks like when you swap out the butter with the mashed avocado. But I promise you, it really does not change the taste, and it just makes the recipe overall much more nutritious. So there you have it. Those are 4 easy swaps to help you enjoy dessert with diabetes while keeping your blood sugar in check. I mentioned before, but I am linking to all the recipes I shared with you below so you can incorporate those swaps easily. And if you want more diabetes-friendly dessert ideas, check out the link below too, because you can grab my free ebook that has 25 low-carb dessert recipes that you can make in minutes. I think you're gonna love them, and it just highlights more ways you can really eat what you love and still manage diabetes. There's no need to give up dessert. So let me know, what's your favorite dessert? Comment below and tell me if you've been able to make it more diabetes friendly, or if you have questions about how to make it diabetes friendly, ask me and I'd be happy to help. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss new tips and tricks. Thanks so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you next time.